Hello and welcome to another AIC Productions video with your host Carl. Today we're going to be replacing the spark plugs on my Mazdaspeed Protege, or MSP. And doing spark plugs is really important, especially if the car has more than 60,000 miles on them. They are meant to be changed more frequently than that on most cars. And it's super easy to do, especially on an inline 4-cylinder engine like this, because they're typically right up here on top and very easy to access. It's very basic in what you need to do the job and the tools that you need. Typically you need either spark plug wires and or an ignition coil. Now this car actually needs 2 of each. So we have those here. Then you need your spark plugs. Now this is personal preference. I do like NGKs. Most of the cars I drive have done better with the NGKs than other spark plugs, but do some research, see what works best in your car. Unless you drive something where the spark plugs are really difficult to get to, I don't necessarily recommend going to an iridium or platinum plug. Stick with a copper. It's less money, and you don't need to spend the extra money on the upgraded plugs. Now, if it's cars like my truck, where a couple of the spark plugs are almost impossible to get to without taking a significant portion of the engine apart, definitely go with an iridium or platinum plug on that, just because you don't want to have to be going in and replacing those anytime soon. As far as tools, you need a simple ratchet, and for this car I need a 10mm socket to take off this cover, as well as remove some bolts for the ignition coils, and then of course a spark plug socket. Also have some dialytic grease to go in the boots that attach to the spark plugs themselves. Sometimes I'll put on an anti-seize, especially on an older car. This car I don't feel like I need it. Plus they have a zinc coating on them, which should prevent that from being a necessity. I'm actually just going to be leaving these in the holes that they're in so I don't lose them. Just go pick this up and set it to the side. Alright, so before I do anything, I just want taking a look at this and seeing where everything's plugged in at. It goes 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the coil packs are here in 2 and 4, and coil pack 2 plugs into socket 3, and coil pack 4 plugs into 1. So we'll go ahead and remove these. These can be pretty tough when they're older and the rubber gets stiff on there. Now, one of the reasons why I am doing this job is I got a check engine light that told me that I have a cylinder misfire on cylinder 2, which is this one here. But I'm going to go ahead and be replacing one. I might as well do all of them. There we go. Those are in there pretty good. They don't look too bad. Let's go and remove these. Plug them. Now it looks like I need a flat-bladed screwdriver to undo that here. Maybe I can get it. There we go. I didn't need that. I just pinch it hard enough. There we go. Oh, and this is a real danger, is that just came right apart. There's a lot of oil in there. I'm going to go get some pliers and see if I can get that to come out here. Alright, so I moved the camera a little bit closer so you see a little bit better. I was able to pull the boot out with just a pair of needle nose pliers. It came right out. So good to go there. Now we're going to go ahead and pull out those old spark plugs. You want to be real careful pulling these out. That one's loose. It's not good. Because you do not want to break any of the porcelain down in there. That means a lot of extra work. So it's worth taking your time and doing it slowly. Now that's the first spark plug in cylinder number 4. Looks pretty black and wet. It doesn't look great. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Just going to loosen these and I'll go back in. A lot of this I like to do with my fingers, so I don't have the extra weight of the wrench on there. I also feel it. I have broken a spark plug. See, it almost looks like a completely different spark plug. Check the brand on that. No? PK J2NECR. They look similar, but this one's got a different bend, slight different bend on there. Now the code was for misfire in this cylinder. Let's see what that spark plug looks like. And I apologize, it's very hot and very humid today. About 100 and that's pretty ugly too. These are not the cleanest looking spark plugs I've seen. Hopefully, wonder if it's the turbo spitting some oil into there. I haven't noticed any blue smoke on startup. Alright, so get the new spark plugs out. They should be pre-gapped. So I'm being careful not to tap them on anything. Just sliding them right in down the hole. Now if you come in here to do your spark plugs and you notice there's a lot of dirt on top of your engine, this is actually pretty clean. If you notice there's a lot of dirt or anything on top of your engine, it's a good idea to go ahead and actually get like a shop vac and clean that up before you actually start to install your, or remove your old plugs or even your boots, because you don't want any of that dirt falling into the cylinder. Now these all have a crush washer on them. I'm just getting them finger tight in. This has an aluminum head on it. If your car has an aluminum head, it's pretty easy to cross thread the spark plugs, and you don't want to be doing that because that again will mean a very expensive repair down the road. So by finger screwing them in at first means that they get threaded in correctly, because if they start to cross thread, I won't be able to turn it by hand. And so by turning it by hand, I know I'm not going to end up doing that. I apologize, I'm very hot. Caught on the edge there. Now this plug socket that I have has one of the rubber boots in it. I actually don't like it. I'm trying to get it to wear out so I can justify getting one of the ones that's magnetic. The magnetic ones are awesome. I love them. But I don't need two spark plug sockets. I need just one. So that's on there. Go ahead and flick that. Alright, so it's tight, and then we just turn it until it firms up, and then we just give it another little twist. That should be plenty tight. I know I've installed a lot of spark plugs over the years, and so I kind of have a feeling for when that washer crushes. If you've not done mini spark plugs, you can often find the torque specs in a service manual or just searching it online. I highly recommend doing that because you don't want to over tighten these, because again you can strip out the threads in your head, which you don't want to do. You want them just tight enough to where it crushes that washer and makes a complete seal. Okay, next thing we're going to do is install the new coils. It doesn't matter which order they go into as long as they get plugged into the correct plugs here. Oh, now I'm just going to check. It doesn't look like there's any grease in there, so we're going to put some grease in them. This keeps the moisture out, so it keeps them from getting corroded, but allows the electricity to pass through still. So anywhere there's an electrical connection, it's a good idea to throw some of this grease in there. Another thing to use this grease for is if you have an older car, you can use it to put on the gaskets around your door. You actually revitalize those a little bit and cause them to have a better seal. There's the coils installed. And here are the two wires. One of these is super short and one is long. Now we're going to use that grease again. We're going to put on both ends. One that goes on the plug and one that plugs into the coil there. The last thing to do is plug them back in. There's a rubber seal boot on there that's getting stuck. Alright, so it actually ended up being that one of the pins in the plug was just ever so slightly bent. So everything's now buttoned up. We still have the cover to put on, but before we do that, I want to go ahead and actually start it and make sure it runs. So Alright, so it took a little convincing because it's been sitting in the garage for a couple of weeks. There must be something that's drained in the battery. It had a really poor aftermarket radio installed, which I need to rip out and put in something better. But it definitely sounds to be running good. We'll go ahead and put the top back on it. Alright, I think we can call this one good. Obviously with misfire, it's a fairly minor code. It'll take some driving around to get it to see if it'll come back. But so far so good. It sounds like it's running smoother. The engine seems to have a little bit less of a shudder than it was having before. So I'm going to call this fixed, and we'll cross it off the windshield.